Hi everyone and welcome to Hazimet Tech channel. Today we're diving into a fundamental concept in Python programming, that is variables. So what exactly are variables and why are they so important in programming? In this video I will introduce to you the concept of variables using some examples that you can try out yourself. It will be a good practice for you. But remember, this is just the beginning. In the next videos, we will continue our exploration and delve deeper into various aspects of variables. We will learn some additional techniques to use them effectively and some best practices to keep our code clean and organized. So if you don't want to miss these coming videos, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay updated on our next content. So today we will first write a small program without using variables and then write the same program but this time with using variables. Then we can compare and understand what are variables and why they are important. So let's get started. So this is IDLE and you can use any other IDE that you are familiar with if you wish. And before we start writing the code, let us just clarify what is meant by a program. So if we look at the definition of the word program on the internet, in a dictionary or a book related to software, we may find definitions similar to this one. A set of instructions or code written to perform a specific task or give a particular result when executed on a computer. And this is exactly what we're going to write, a set of instructions that will perform a specific task. In our case, the task will be to print some basic personal information of different persons, like their name and age, for example. We will use the information from this table and write a program that will return some output similar to this one, to the left of your screen. But not only for Tom, but also for Ali and Jessica too. So now that our program task is clear, let's start writing the code. So we will create a new file in IDLE and then save it in our computer. In our last video, if you remember, we used IDLE. We have first created a file in a text editor, saved it on our machine, and then opened it in IDLE. You can check that video if needed. Today I will demonstrate a different method of creating a Python file or module using IDLE. So let's go to IDLE and click on File, then a new file. So this is a new file ready for us to write our code in, but before that we need to save it. So go back to File and then Save or Save As, so it's a new file, it's the same, so we will use Save. And here you can give a name to your file, and you see here these are all files of the type .py. So you will not have using this method to add the .py extension. You will just give a name. So for example, we can name it personal info and click save. Now our file is saved and you can see here the folder in which it is present. So let's start writing our code. In Python, when you start a line of code with the pound sign, it will be considered as a comment and it will be ignored. It will not be executed. So we will write a comment for ourselves just to know that, for example, this is a program without variables. So if we run this file, Python will not execute, will just interpret this line as being a comment and it will not be executed. And this can be part of documenting your code, which we will see later in some more advanced videos. And then we can start writing our code. So if you want to have exactly the same output as the one that you see on the right of your screen, the first line is just an asterisk character repeated 25 times. So we will use the function print that we have seen previously, and we will print the asterisk character 25 times. So to do it, we'll have just to put in the argument asterisk between double quotations mark, close the parenthesis, but in fact this will just print the asterisk one time. If you run the module, you will see that the asterisk is printed just one time, but we don't want this. We want it to be printed 25 times. So to do this, we will have to go back to our file and modify this argument a little bit. So we'll keep the same argument, the same string, and multiply it by 25. So here this is 25. We don't have to put it within double quotations because it is not a string. It's an integer. We will see these data types in the future, in the next videos. And this is different than the asterisk. So this is the same character, it looks the same, but if you put it between or within double quotations, it will be considered as a string. But if you use it without the double quotations, it is considered as being the multiplication operator. We will see this operator in the next video too. This argument means that it is this string character will be multiplied by 25 and printed out to our screen. So now we will run again our file and see what will be the difference. Okay, we need to save it each time before running, and then you see that now it's different. So this is the first line of our program. We have to add the other lines now. So we have to go to the next line, press enter, and then we need to print the second sentence, the first sentence, which is person's information, and close with the second quotation mark, close the parenthesis, and this is the second line. So notice that we have now two lines, and if we run our file again, it will start executing from the first line and then the second line and print the results for both statements. So we will run again now to see what will be the difference. And you see here we have the line of asterisks and the person's information. Let's go back to our file and print the remaining lines that we need. So we will need another line of asterisks, so we will just have to copy exactly the same print function here on the third line. Press enter. The next line will be to print the person's name is Tom. Okay, let's do it. The person's name is Tom. And double quotations, and we close the parenthesis. Another print statement. This time is it will be to print the age of the person. So the person's age is, and we print, go from the table, it is 25, so we'll keep 25. And the last line will print some greeting. It will print welcome Tom. Okay, our code is ready for Tom, so now we will run our file. And you see here the output. This is what we expected to have. Now if we want to have the same output for the two other persons in the table, Ali and Jessica, we will have to go back to our file and do the same thing for these two other persons. So I will not type in all these statements again. I will just copy here this part and paste it, and I will just change the name here to Ali. The age will be 36, and here the welcome message will change also. We'll do the same thing for Jessica. We'll copy and paste. Okay, person's information 25. Here we will change the name in the print argument. We'll change the age. It should be 65, and here Jessica. And here we go. We will run our module again and see what would be the result. And this is the result. So we have personal information printed out for the three persons. So this is the output and the code without using variables. Let's now write another program, but this time using variables. So now we can delete all this program and write a different program, but this time with variables. So we will change our comment here. It will be with variables. So now, before we start to write the print statements, before that we will use variable. So what will vary in our case? The thing that changes. What is changing in our table or information is first the name of the person is changing, and also the age. So let's start with the name. So this is a variable. We will call it a name, so we can give it a meaningful name. In this case it is name, and we assign to it a value. In this case the value will be Tom. This is a string, and it represents the name that we want to assign to this variable. We'll do the same thing, and we will create second variable, and this time it will be the age, and for Tom it is 25. So now we have two variables. In Python we create variables by assigning a value to a name. So this variable names represents like a label to a location in the memory that is storing these values. So these variable names are used to store these values in the memory, and if I will need that value later in my code, I can refer to it by its name. For example, I will need to print the value of the variable name later in the code, so I will use the same function print, and as an argument I will put in the variable name and run the module. Okay, you can see that Python has printed out Tom, which is the value stored in the name variable. And we can also print the other variable, age, if you want to print out the value of this variable. So age, and we run our module again. Okay, and here we have the two values printed out, Tom and 25. Let's go back to our file. Now we will write the program to output the personal information of Tom but this time it will be slightly different. We will not have to write Tom and 25. We will just use the variables. So I will copy and paste the same code that we previously used. So you can see in this code here, we are not typing Tom within the double quotations, and we are not typing the age 25. We are using the variables, but note that there is a comma separating the variable and the string that we want to be printed on the screen. So in this case, we can say that print function has two arguments. The first one is the string, and then the second one is the variable. And the arguments need to be separated by a comma. So the first three lines are the same as before. The only change is in these last three lines. We are using variables in each of these statements. You may have noticed that the last print statement is having two commas because we will have this variable name in the middle between the welcome string and the exclamation mark string. So we will have to put it in the second position in order to be printing the value of name between welcome and the exclamation mark. So let's run our module now and see if it will print the same output. And this is the output. So when we execute the code, we have the same output as before. Now we would like to print the information of a different person, let's say Ali. We will not have to write another code just for Ali as we've done previously, but we're going to use variables and just change their values and see the magic happen. Let's have a closer look at these variables before changing their values. Variables have a name and an assigned value. And this is the syntax. The equal symbol here is an assignment operator used to assign values to variables in Python. It is different from the equality operator used in mathematics, which is represented by double equal symbols in Python. We will explore these and other operators in the future videos. If you're feeling a bit confused right now, especially if you're new to programming, don't worry, believe me, you'll be familiar with these operators soon enough, especially with a bit of practice. Hang in there, guys. So we can change the value of the variables and refer to these variables again by their names. And in fact, that is why they are called variables. Their value can vary and change. So for Ali, he is 36. We don't have to modify anything in the code here or add another statement. We'll just have to modify our variables. So here the variable name is storing this value in the memory, the value Tom, and this second variable called age is storing another value which is 25 in the memory also, in a different location in the memory. And these names and these variable names are referencing in fact those memory locations where these values here are stored. So now we will change the value which was stored in the name variable, and we give it a different value, Ali. We will do the same for the second variable, 36, and that's all we need to output a different information for Ali, because here the code when it will be executed, this code below here, it will check what is the value of these variables, and it will take the new values that we have just given to these variables. So now we run again, and this is the output of information. So just ignore these two lines here, because just to show you that these two lines are because we have these two print statements that we used previously to explain. So if we remove them now and keep just these same code as we have used in the first example and run again, we will have exactly the same output. And we can do the same thing for Jessica too. So we will just have to modify the variable again without modifying the below code, and the output will be different. I think it was 65 if I'm not wrong, and we will run again the module, and here we go. Let's go back to our file, and now let's see how these variables were created. So variables in Python are dynamically typed. You don't need to declare the type of your variable prior to assigning a value to it, like we will do in another language like C, for example, or any other statically typed language. Python will dynamically determine the type of the variable during runtime, so you don't have to worry about declaring the type of the variables in Python. The variables will be created as soon as a value is assigned to them, and that is one of the things that makes Python a flexible and easy to use programming language. So now I have closed the previous file and I have opened a new window in IDLE. But please note this is the CLI, which is different from the file that we have created previously, the .py. This is the CLI that we have seen in the previous videos. So using this CLI, we will see another example of using variables in Python. In Python, we can use variable to store data in our program and also to store the result of operations. Let's see this in more details. So for example, we want to calculate the result of the addition of two numbers. For example, 500 plus 2500. So remember, this is the CLI, so you don't have to run, there's no file to run. This is an interactive command line, so after typing our command, we will just have to press enter, and Python will execute this line and return the output. So here it is 3000. Okay, good. Now the addition was evaluated and the result is computed. However, we will not be able to use this result later in our code. The result exists in memory temporarily, but it is not stored for future use unless we assign it to a variable. So let's do the same thing, but this time using variables. And okay, let's do it here in the CLI. We don't have to, we can create a new file as we have done with the personal information example, and do the same and create and write our code there. But we can also do it in the CLI. This is a small example, so we can do it here. So instead of just adding the two numbers, we will create a variable called name1, and using the equal symbol, we will assign to it a value, and the value is 500. So when I press enter, Python will return nothing. It will just create the number one variable. We will create another second variable. Let's call it number2, and assign to it a value of the second number that we want to add to 500. It should be 2500. We press enter, and now we have two variables created. So if we want to store our result of the addition in a variable in memory such that we can retrieve this value later, we can do it using variables. So we will create another variable called result. So this is the name of the variable, and we will assign to it the addition of these two previously created variables, so number1 plus number2, and we press enter. and we're good. Now we have a variable storing the result of our addition operation. So if we want to print the value of the result again, we can do it using the print function that we are already familiar with now. So we will print, and between the parentheses we will just type in the name of the variable that we want to see the value, and we close the parentheses and we press enter, and you see here that it printed the value of the variable result. So here we have stored the result of an operation, in this case it's an addition, to a variable called result. I hope that this video was helpful in learning and understanding the concept of variables. In the next video we will see how to assign the output returned by functions to variables.